This is the American Indians, indigenous peoples' truths. Justice for all, the most dangerous show on media anywhere. OCO and greetings. Aya Jago La Waya Sonoy. I'm J1 the Nightwolf. And this is the Indigenous People's Truths. Justice for all, the most dangerous show on media anywhere. And now it's time for the news with Chief Magistrate Retired Don Walker.
Osio, Agidohi, Agilahi. Hello to my brothers and sisters. I'm Don Walker with news from Indian country and light commentary now in session. First article I'm going to talk to you about is inside the oil industry's fight to roll back tribal sovereignty after a Supreme Court decision. Governor Kevin Stitt's commission to sort out Oklahoma's future is stacked with oil and gas insiders and has no indigenous voices. Well, that's a big shock, isn't it? In a landmark decision last summer, the U.S. Supreme Court confirmed that the eastern half of the state of Oklahoma is reservation land, legally Indian country, although Oklahoma officials spent a century ignoring treaties signed by leaders of the Creek Nation. The justices asserted that the treaties remain the law of the land, meaning, most likely, that the reservations of 4 other tribal nations that share a distinct legal and political history in Oklahoma also stand. Well, I think that's a big shock, too. The inventors, the originators of the term Indian giver, the U.S. government, took back what they had already given the Indians. That's the other half of the state. McGurk versus Oklahoma, a major victory for indigenous nations, is now having legal consequences well beyond the state. The Supreme Court ruling, however, was only the beginning of a new battle to redefine Oklahoma's identity. On its face, the McGurk case had nothing to do with the oil and gas industry. Jim C. McGurk, convicted to life in prison, argued that the land where he committed the crimes qualifies as a reservation. Thus, he successfully argued that his conviction should be overturned since he should have been tried in federal, not state court. The problem for the oil and gas industry is that McGurk's push to reconsider jurisdiction on the band of territory where the alleged crime took place meant also reconsidering the status of around half of Oklahoma. The decision upended the state's authority over a swath of land that produces 40% of Oklahoma's total monthly oil and gas production and is home to the global oil pricing hub of Cushing, a town known as the pipeline crossroads of the world. In this next article, I'm going to be talking about Cherokee Nation Chief Chuck Hoskin. He signed the Cherokee Nation Public Health and Wellness Fund Act into law March 17th, 2021. Cherokee Generational Improvement in Physical Wellness, Mental Health, and Addiction Treatment, Monday, March 29th, by Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin. He states, even before COVID-19, far too many Cherokees and others in our communities struggled with addiction. The increased stress and anxiety of the past year tragically has made that struggle harder for many. As we continue the fight against the global pandemic, we must stay focused on the ongoing needs in mental and behavioral health, as well as concentrate on Northeast Oklahoma's addiction epidemic. To better address these issues, Cherokee Nation is investing $9 to $12 million annually in addiction treatment and wellness centers throughout our reservation. A portion of the revenue generated by Cherokee Nation Health Services will be earmarked annually under the Cherokee Nation Public Health and Wellness Fund Act. These revenues will go to building, maintaining, and operating new wellness centers and expanded programs. This represents the largest annual increase in such tribally funded programs in Cherokee history. Sadly, there will be an ongoing need to fight substance abuse and addiction long after the COVID-19 emergency is behind us. With the establishment of treatment sites and a permanent funding source, we will be able to offer the proven continuum of care model, combining many disciplines and different forms of help to make sure patients do not slip through the cracks. Individuals seeking sobriety and mental health assistance will also have access to essential tools for supporting whole families and building resilience. Mental and behavioral health care is essential health care in the Cherokee Nation. Our team of behavioral and public health professionals already do a tremendous job of caring for Cherokee Nation citizens. They provide services including suicide prevention, opioid and substance misuse counseling, and intervention, and strong, bear with me here, public health policy development. With this additional funding, we now have an opportunity to make generational improvements in behavioral care. Rural communities typically have the least access to mental health care, making it especially important to build more places to care across our reservation. We will be creating campus-like spaces that are tailored to Cherokee patients' needs, places where they can feel safe and support through their healing process. Throughout our growing telehealth capabilities, we will also expand outpatient services to help patients after they return home. Because of our approach to healthcare is to treat the body and mind, physical wellness is also a key component of the Health and Wellness Fund. So in the coming years, we will focus more on prevention through physical fitness and nutrition programs. More often than not, mental health problems are accompanied by or even made more severe by other ailments. Quite simply, we believe healthcare should treat the whole person. This historic investment will help us achieve a more holistic approach to healthcare. When I took office, our First Lady, Hoskin, reminded me that every one of us is vulnerable to mental health issues, are impacted in some way by substance abuse, and that Cherokee Nation should do more to help. Over a lifetime, a mental health crisis is almost certain to affect us or someone we love. Drug abuse impacts us all. These issues should not have a stigma. Instead, as my wife told me, we should always ask, how can we help? As Cherokee Nation takes a big step forward in providing that help, I hope other healthcare partners in Oklahoma follow suit. Thank you, and back to you, Jay.
Well, Don, appreciate your help, man. Now, I want everybody to listen because the Transgender Day of Visibility has been being celebrated worldwide. Also, I saw something on news this morning that really turned my stomach inside out. There was a black man that was walking down the street and an Asian woman walking in the opposite direction. And this fool had the nerve to kick this 65-year-old Asian woman that was going to church in her stomach. And when she fell, he stomped her 4 or 5 more times. It ended up with a broken pelvis and some other stuff. You know, I don't care what you think, but wrong is wrong. Asian people deserve the same respect that you want, black man. Remember that. And you need to, I hope when they have arrested you, and I hope they lock you up in a cell with no light and throw the key away, because you don't deserve to be out here with other members of the human family. So let's stop this Asian hate now. All of you, I know not all of you, but a lot of you have eaten Chinese food from Chinese restaurants, and you've also gone and sat and had meals at Chinese restaurants. Then people don't mistreat you. You know, it is crazy. And you're following in the white man's steps. You're following right behind Don Walker, not Don Walker, but not Don Walker, Donald Trump, and his exposure and emboldening white people with hate. So you need to be locked up somewhere and never released from prison. And that's my 2 cents worth. I don't like it. And if I ever see anybody out there, I don't care whether you're black, white, native, or whatever color, and you're doing something like this, then I'm gonna jump right in the middle of it, because I don't play that. Right is right and wrong is wrong, and I don't tolerate anybody's arrogant ignorance. So maybe your mama or your daddy didn't raise you right and didn't instill any kind of values in you, but this will not be tolerated. So that's my kick in on that. My co-host Sandra Hope, how you doing, sweetie?
I'm good, Jay. What's up? Want to give out prayers to that lady, man. I wish someone had been there to see that. You know, they could have just.
Well, I tell you what, had Dennis Banks been there, Russell Means, John Trudell, they would have put a stop to it. And
yeah,
I don't like it. I don't appreciate it, and it's not right.
Yeah, and I don't know necessarily that it was his upbringing. Some people are just like that. Some people just, has nothing. Could have been raised by wonderful people, but some people just lose it somewhere along the way. And so I feel very, very badly about that, and want that lady to get healing and protection and care.
Absolutely, and I wish her. She's got my prayers and a speedy recovery. And I'm not going to go to that old cliche about some of my best friends. No, I got friends that are from Asian descent, Chinese, Korean, Japanese, and all of that, Filipinos. So, we need to stop that. And all of you brothers that are out there listening to this and watching me, whether you're black, white, red, or green, you need to step in, because that is totally unnecessary. It was totally unwarranted. Here's a woman going to church. And what if somebody did that to your mama or your grandma? What would you do? Okay.
Yeah. And Leslie just noted that she thinks he was accused of murdering his wife and that he killed his mother in 2002. So he should have been caught before now.
Yeah, he should have been locked behind bars, and behind more bars.
Or he's accused of it, rather.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for weighing in on that. So now let's go to the broadcast for tonight. I have three of my friends. So when I say friends, I don't take that literally. These are my friends. John Boyd, who is the founder and president of the Black Farmers Association. His wife, Cara Boyd, who is a Native woman, who is the founder and president of the Native Farmers Association. And I also have my good friend, Rudy Arredondo, who is the national president of the Latino Farmers and Ranchers Association. And we'll be right back to talk to them. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the American Net. Why do I keep doing that? Welcome back to the Indigenous People's Truth. Justice for all, the most dangerous show on media anywhere. I'm going to start with my good friend, John Boyd. John, welcome to my broadcast, man.
Thank you for having me. And not only are we friends, I'm a fan. So we go way back, Jay. And this is an awesome show you put together here, and we just want to congratulate you.
Absolutely. Well, I didn't do it by myself. I got a great executive producer,
Yes, you do.
Leslie Fry, and my sister up there in the corner,
That's right.
Sandra Hope. And I see another pretty woman there. That's my buddy, Cara Boyd. How you doing, Cara? I like your hat.
Great. Thank you for having us.
Not a problem. And if I move over here now to my good friend, the old man.
Don't take that, Rudy. Don't take it.
Oh, no. You know, this is a family show, so I'll keep it clean.
His name is Rudy Arredondo. Been knowing Rudy for years. One of my real good friends, who is the national president of the Latino Farmers and Ranchers Association. Welcome to the show, Rudy. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much, Joe. Appreciate your having this other forum.
Absolutely. So, Rudy, I got to remind you, keep it clean. So let's move right into this. I've got so many papers here, it's unreal. Thank you, Cara, for all of it. Historic and present racial bias and economic violations against America's black farmers by the U.S. government through the Department of Agriculture. Here are some additional questions we have since the hearing and reading the written testimony by Secretary Vilsack, Philip Haney, and Cornelius Landy. Why did Chairman Scott and Bayer, the chemical company, enter a letter of support into the record? Why did they do that, John?
I don't know, and I believe that many are for big agriculture. I know that Secretary Vilsack certainly has had a history supporting big agriculture, such as Monsanto, and back in the day we called him Mr. Monsanto. So hopefully this administration will be, better for Secretary Vilsack. And the hearing was a long, lengthy hearing with many, asked different questions. But I was very surprised to see Bayer. Then the chairman introduced his letter of support, from Bayer. I don't know what was in that letter, but we actually are suing Bayer Monsanto right now. The National Black Farmers Association is. So we found it curious and troubling that they supported black farmers, and they know that we're in the middle of our litigation.
And Jay, we've asked for a copy of that letter, and they said that we can read it once the congressional record is published. And so we really don't have a chance to respond and have that as a part of the congressional record because you haven't seen it yet. So it wasn't read, it was just introduced.
Okay. Rudy, this whole thing
Yes, sir.
about how they have discriminated against black farmers for centuries.
Well, it's not only is it really troubling that we have Vilsack for a second term, but in the 8 years of the Obama administration, not once did the secretary make any effort to meet with Latino farmers. Our organization is now 16. We're in our 16th year of existence. Represent over 75,000 Latino farmers and ranchers, and yet we have, since we were formed, we haven't seen a Secretary of Agriculture at our conferences. When we were organized in Las Cruces, New Mexico, back in 2005, we had support, and we had the Secretary of Agriculture at that time is Mike Johan.
Mhm.
So it's really strange that we were able to do this under what is usually considered not a very friendly, party, but there it is. And like I said, 8 years, not once did Vilsack do any reaching out to the Latino farmers and ranchers. To this date, we have yet to receive any kind of
Acknowledge.
invitation or communication from the Department of Agriculture with regard to as far as they're concerned, we do not exist.
And you met with Vilsack many times.
Yeah, many
At the
times.
park.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
he still doesn't care enough to even mention how
Well,
Hispanic.
furthermore, there's other troubling things. For instance, a lot of the people that were in his term as secretary are back in office with him. So it's like what is this? And he claims that he is going to be doing more, and so, and then of course we have, as John and Kara have indicated, Monsanto is his one of his top advisors. Okay, Goldman,
Yes.
Mr. Monsanto man.
Yes.
You know, we really need to have accountability of Vilsack, who says the Equity Commission hasn't been formed yet. Why hasn't it been formed yet? And goes on later to say that the Equity Committee is working on it. How can the committee work on it when they don't even have a damn committee?
That's exactly right, Jake. And Rudy hit all the nails with the hammer. And I want to congratulate Rudy ARREDONDO on a tremendous career. He's been out there with us on the forefront for many years, and he's still out there beating the pavement. But he hit all the nails with the hammer, and he's exactly right. And here all of us work to pass this measure in the bill, the Farmers of Color Act, $5 billion for debt relief and $1 billion to form this commission and to do outreach. And Secretary Vilsack came to the hearing with no information on next steps, Jay. And I pressed him diligently about who's going to be on this commission and how is it going to work, how is it going to distribute this $1 billion. And I believe that Congress made a mistake by letting the secretary have discretion on how to set this commission up and discretion on how to do the outreach. And that's what I was laying out to the chairman, but we didn't get the feedback there that I would like to see from the Ag Committee. And a lot of the members there gave Secretary Vilsack a love reception. It wasn't It wasn't hard pressing. I think the only one who asked the most difficult questions there was me. You know?
Congressman Rush.
And Congressman
Some
Bobby
accountability.
Rush did very well.
Bobby Rush, yeah.
Bobby Rush was on it and really went to Secretary Vilsack there. But Dwayne Goldman, I believe, is the wrong person at this time in history. You know, here we have President Biden, who promised me last February, before I endorsed him, that there would be change in leadership at the throne of the secretary and subordinates, meaning undersecretaries and people. He said there'd be some new blood. But instead, we got Secretary Vilsack, and he's hand-picking a lot of the cherry-picking the people that he wants to bring back to USDA, who are big agriculture. Dwayne Goldman is big agriculture.
He hired him, and he's his colleague from Monsanto. And in fact, his job while he was at Monsanto, and once it merged with Bayer, at Bayer to also do outreach for Black farmers. And instead, they started a new group and said that they work with majority farmers. Well, everyone knows who majority farmers are. Who would put into their written testimony on the state of Black farmers that they partner with themselves and farmers? And if someone hires you, I don't think you're advising them. I think you're there as an employee, and especially when you get on a call and you refer to them as "Hey boss," you know. So I don't think that you're going to see the change in the equity, because I just don't believe that Dwayne Goldman is the person to bring equity, or even to look at a lens for equity for small-scale Black farmers. When you go to EWG subsidy database and look at how much subsidy he and his farm have collected over the past years.
Hey, now I want to tell you something. I researched. In 1920, there were 1 million Black farmers in America, but now there's less than 50,000. How the hell did that happen? How did that happen?
Well, it was due to the systematic discrimination at the United States Department of Agriculture and its farm subsidy program, farm ownership loans, farm operating loans, and the county committees. The 3-member panels, probably 99% white men, not just white, but white men, that held these positions that advised the county supervisor on who gets what and how much of what in each additional county. USDA has the second largest federal presence in the United States, only secondary to the Postal Service as far as locations. So this is a massive bureaucracy, and they lend more direct money than all of the banks put together in rural America. So a lot of people don't know the impact of USDA and how much money it puts out there. And they pretty much just flat right denied applications for processing time on loan applications, 387 days on average for a Black farm loan application, and 30 days for a white farm loan application. And blatant discrimination in my own home county, where the county supervisor would only see Black farmers on Wednesday. And Ed Bradley from 60 Minutes came down and done an in-depth investigation and spoke to the county supervisor. And he asked him, did he spat on Mr. Board? He told him yes, but it was by accident. You know, did you pay his application up? He said, well, yes. He didn't have any money left, so he didn't see any sense of processing the loan application. He asked him about using racial epithets, all of this stuff, Jay.
Over 300 days to get an application processed by a Black farmer, and less than a month for a white farmer.
Yes.
Yeah. And that 1997 case where the 400 Black farmers sued USDA, that was, even though that was settled, the farmers really didn't get any relief from any of that, correct? So as I read it, 16,200 Black farmers were victimized by USDA's racist practices, and only 371 received debt relief. And so a lot of the other ones just simply went out of business. They could no longer afford to sustain their agriculture.
You know, at one time in my life, when I was very young, after the military, I worked for a year at USDA. I couldn't stand that place. Man, I gave it a name, and all of the people of color that work there, they picked up on the name. I call it the White Farmers Union.
Well, we called it, and Rudy know this name, the last plantation.
Yeah, it lives up to its name.
That's right. It lives up to its name, and that's what we named it. And Abraham Lincoln said it was the People's Department, but us advocates call it, and Black farmers and Hispanic farmers alike, and Native American farmers call it the last plantation. And it's really lived up to its name. And like Rudy was saying, that Secretary Vilsack says he's going to be better to our farmers of color. But as my daddy says, don't watch what they say. Watch everything that they do.
There you
So
go.
we're going to be watching him to see
Right.
what his results are going to be, and what he's going to do with this $5 billion. Because right now it's just sitting at USDA, and there's been no next steps on how farmers of color, Native American farmers, Hispanic,
And
Black farmers,
women farmers.
we get that.
Yeah.
Right. And Jay,
movement. Yes.
Jay, I would just like to piggyback on what Rudy and John have both said about Vilsack bringing back some of the same players. And, it's very discouraging for me, having advocated for Keep Eagle for Native American farmers.
Right.
And Native American farmers, we had half of the settlement money that was left over, $380 million. And the Black farmers had 83,000 farmers who came after their filing deadline. And they got a second round of applications and $1.2 billion more in money to compensate them. The Native American farmers, with $380 million left in their settlement fund, didn't even get a chance for late filers to file an application. Nothing. And they took that money and they sent it over to a trust. Why is it when it comes to Native Americans, we never get
Everything goes in trust.
And
Yeah.
so what's disheartening about that is Janie Hipp, who was at the Office of Tribal Relations, left USDA, went to the University of Arkansas, and became point of contact, not for the class, but for class council. And then she set up the Native American Trust Fund or Agriculture Fund. And guess who became the executive director? Janie Hipp. So what I say is follow the money. And guess where she's back now? Now she's back at USDA as the Inspector General and going to oversee all of the complaints and the grievances. And so it's very disheartening, because we just see, if she would do that to the Native Americans, imagine what she's going to do to everyone else at USDA.
And you know what?
She's general counsel too.
Oh, I'm sorry, general counsel.
General counsel.
Wow.
And many years ago, I thought that she was a good person. But you know what? You're not judged by what you think you are. You're judged by what you do, period.
Right.
Talk
And
is cheap.
Jay, as Native Americans, and I'll be very transparent here, I'm a member of a state recognized tribe. I'm an enrolled member of the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina. My tribe is historically non-federally recognized. And so
Right.
to have Vilsack appoint someone from the Intertribal Agricultural Council that discriminates and services only members of federally recognized tribes, it's disheartening. And they talk about equity. How are we going to create equity when these people have, disdain for other Native Americans and other people of color, or even small scale farmers? Because equal is not equitable.
Well, you know what? One of our viewers just wrote a comment. Her name is Sarah Boudet. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. And she says that, her parents had trouble years ago, and they're white farmers. So it's not
Yes.
about it. They said her grandparents, who were white in Vermont, struggled to make it due to finances involved by the USDA. So
Yes.
I guess if you're not a member of the good old boys club, then you out.
Well, I'll tell you, Jay and Sandra and Rudy, farming is the hardest occupation known to man.
Oh yeah.
It's tough. It's tough. You have to deal with
That's right.
Mother Nature and all the things that go wrong, that can go wrong with the crop. But you ought not be faced with discrimination.
That's right. That's right. We all have to have water to live. Good
Right.
water, food, good healthy food, not the processed stuff that we're all killing ourselves on.
That's
And I grew up in North Carolina. My family, we had a farm, we had a garden, and I'm telling you, there is nothing like food out of the garden. You cannot, and the fact that we don't support the sustainers of our livelihood and our existence is egregious. It's
I'll tell
You
you,
know,
if you never had a farm fresh tomato,
that's right.
you have not tasted a tomato.
That's
That-
right. Tell that to my kids all the
Taste the
time.
difference in the food. You can taste the difference in the food.
Right. And I would just like to add that Secretary Sonny Perdue, openly said, otherwise get big or go home, get out. He had no sympathy or no compassion for small scale farmers. And unfortunately, in America, with industrialized farming and agriculture, that's really what USDA has begun to cater to. And that's why we had such pushback on the return of Secretary Tom Vilsack.
I gotta commend Rudy because Rudy is the national president of Latino Farmers um, and Ranchers Association. And every weekend during the spring and summer, guess what? That's where I go to get my vegetables because they're local farmers. I'm more interested in the taste. And talking about farming, my grandparents, mother's people, are from a place called Blair, South Carolina. They're Cherokees. And they had, I think it was over 200 acres that they had to uh, till the soil every spring and plant vegetables. And that food, nothing compares to the food that comes straight from the earth without any kind of process, chemical treatment, and all that kind of stuff. So if you haven't had fresh food from the farm, then you're not eating good food.
That's
That's
right.
right.
And I'm with you, Antonio, listener Antonio. I drove a tractor when I was young. Let's get those bad boys out and drive them right into DC.
Yeah, I'm reading the comments and the very, very good comments. And we all know, we'll drive that tractor there, Rudy, and my mule and wagon too, 40 acres of struggle. And we'll definitely show up in Washington, D.C. So,
You talk about tractors. I remember when I was like 5 or 6 years old, I used to stand on the plow while my grandfather had it hitched up to a mule.
that's right.
You know, it's nothing like putting your hands in Mother Earth, and that's the soil.
Sure. Yes.
And they had no choice because, God, my grandma and granddaddy had a whole lot of kids. I mean, I'm talking about not a whole lot, but a whole bunch of kids.
That's right.
And they were forced to grow because they couldn't afford to go and buy it anywhere else.
That's right.
Yeah. Rudy, go ahead.
Well,
I know.
yeah. For those of you in the Washington metropolitan area and certainly in around DC, we're going to be opening our farmers market tentatively right now because we're waiting for the mayor to give us the green light May the 1st, and we're open from May 1st. Uh, God willing, from 8 to 2 every Saturday until hopefully we'll go like until Thanksgiving.
Right.
So this is our 13th season that we're going to be starting. So it's been 13 years that we have been, or will be 13 years that we've been at the University of the District of Columbia in partnership with them, and with farmers that come in from southern
Mhm.
Westmoreland County in Southern Virginia.
So let's do this. We're going to take a quick break and come back and talk some more. And when we come back, we need to talk more about transparency. I'm Jay Nightwolf, and this is the American Indian Indigenous Peoples Truth, Justice for All, the most dangerous show on media anywhere. I'll be right back, Leslie. Okay, we're back. Transparency. Yeah. Transparency. There seems to be very little of that in the past, and it's all by design. So let's talk about what we can do to hold their feet to the fire, because they need to they need to be held to the fire. That money that you were talking about, they put in trust fund. Where did that money go? Does anybody know? I need to know where that money went.
I don't know.
Well,
Go ahead,
Rudy, I'd like to say, it was very disheartening because when John and I organized to get the farmers paid through Keep Siegel, there was a bond, and what it was presented to us is that they wanted it to be a perpetual funding source. So from the time they transferred 380 million out of Cypre to the Native American Agriculture Fund, it had grown over at least $20 million. So over 20 years, if they pay out that money to nonprofits during this time, it's going to be drawing interest. So that money is going to be there constantly growing, even while they pay it out. And what's so disheartening is that that money is going to go to help nonprofits and tribes and universities, but not the farmers who were discriminated against. And I just can't see it until, we were in the courtroom, and, Marilyn Keep Siegel and one of the other elders, one of the named plaintiffs, said they felt like they had a gun put to their head in order to sign that settlement agreement. Nobody wanted that. And so we talk about the fat takers, about people who come to the table not to put in work and not to eat with you, but to take the fat. And so
shoot you.
Yeah, the accountability and how that money is being dispersed. And I think they had to go back and do some more modifications on it so that the money would be spent to those nonprofits and universities in states that had large populations of Native Americans. And so even with the Black farmers settlement in Cypre, there was $12 million left over. And out of the $12 million, instead of distributing the Cypre to the nonprofits that met that definition, they did an amendment, and they set up this phase 1 and phase 2. And in phase 1, they paid out $4 million. So there's $8 million remaining in the Cypre fund for NRA Black farmers discrimination. And we haven't heard anything in almost 3 years.
Who controls that money?
The Cypre, I think class council does. And there's trustees on those Cypre accounts.
And that's where the problem came in that. And there were four cases that we worked hard on.
For discrimination.
Four discrimination cases: the Black farmers case, the Native American farmers case, Keep Siegel, the women's case called the Love case, and Rudy knows all about the Hispanic case, the Garcia case. The women and the Hispanic weren't certified, but I believe it should have been. They weren't certified as a class and had a administrative remedy that resulted in a few women and Hispanics making it through that process. So we really need to take a look at, especially in the Native American farmers case, our class counsel, who I hired for the case, Joe Sellers, who I thought was one of the best civil rights lawyers in the country. He went to move for the trust, and we became unfriended. We really haven't had much conversation since he made the decision to have the trust. So, I feel that partly responsible because, Joe Sellers was a personal friend that I referred the Native American farmers case to after the judge took our Powries off of the women's case and the Hispanic case and the Garcia case. So it's just a bad taste for everyone that's been involved in this, and we still have to find a remedy, in my opinion, especially for the Hispanic farmers and the women farmers who really didn't get any justice at all.
No, not at all. I agree.
Rudy,
They were so, and I mean, people, wound up not only losing their farms, but people died, passed away with issues totally unresolved, and it still is, it still smarts in terms of how badly folks were mistreated in the process of dealing with these discrimination cases. it was it and you hear it from the Congress people. They feel like, that these folks who were discriminated and abused and humiliated when they didn't get their loans on time, uh, and or their applications were thrown into the trash. We've experienced that. I was working for Farmers Home Administration, dealing with civil rights. That was part of my job, is to analyze what was happening on in the civil rights department, and it was just horrible to see, you know, even though it's on paper, how awful these folks were mistreated by the staff, and yet nobody suffered any consequences as a result of this really horrendous behavior by the staff of the Department of Agriculture.
So,
And
go ahead. Go ahead.
and Rudy is right. All this discrimination, all these proven guilt and settlements, and not one person's been fired, penalized, or reprimanded, or shown their face on CNN or anybody that's getting fired for causing all of this discrimination. So here we have people who was that the USDA knew had multiple cases, had discriminated against multiple farmers, and they still didn't fire him or her. And that's what's troubling, and that's why the culture, Jay and Sandra, hasn't changed at USDA, because nobody's been penalized. And as soon as you fire somebody or somebody of significance, and they see that, well, this is what happens when you mistreat people. Once that happens, I believe that we can begin to address the culture, and that's what remains the same at USDA.
And
the faces
Jay,
come and go, but the culture is still alive and well at USDA.
And Jay, if I could just kind of weigh in there, John received settlement prior to the Pickford and in-rate black farmers discrimination case in 1997. And in his settlement agreement, it states that he was to be receive debt forgiveness. And that was all USDA had to do, forgive the debt. And what happened, that was 1997. In 2019, John and I went to buy a farm, and the attorneys did a title search. And guess what they found? Over $600,000 in liens against the farm that USDA had never, ever released those liens. And you would think that would be a breach of agreement, right?
Yeah.
So we went into the county FSA office, and would you believe that they still had a folder in there for John Boyd after all these years? Usually they say after 3 to 10 years, oh, we sent that somewhere and filed it away. But the loan manager went in there, he pulls up this folder, and there are these certificates of satisfaction that had been prepared in 1997. How do I know they were prepared in 1997? The notary block said, my commission expires in 1998. Never signed, never executed. And so, and I was going to say, if John Boyd had died and we didn't have a copy of that, I would be homeless today. And that's why it's so important that we have the accountability and the transparency, that when USDA says they're going to do something, that they do it. And we know that there are discrepancies and there was erroneous filings. So between the farmers' records, FSA records, and the county courthouses, we have to have accountability and we have to have transparency, that we can't allow USDA to do this, because I believe that those people in that local office retaliated against John Boyd because he continued to be outspoken and refused to file those certificates the same way they refused to process his applications.
Well, you know what? We just had a viewer I think his name is Hemlet. Well, we got another viewer. His name is Stephen. Well, William Hemlet says, I can say personally that when I signed my USDA loan back in 2015, I made a deal with the devil, and I have learned a very important lesson. Also, from USA Today on March the 14th this year, Senator Lindsey Graham slammed out of control for putting it in the relief package, calling it reparations. Why was it called reparations when you owe somebody something? There's no such thing as reparations. Lindsey Graham is a fool and an idiot.
you know.
But
And
it's worse than that. A lot of the bad actors that discriminated against farmers uh, are still employed by the Department of Agriculture. They're still loan officers. They're county supervisors. They're still there because nothing happened. Nothing happened. So
I was hoping that
it's
Biden would
so
come and clean house.
yeah.
Well, it was.
Well, you think so?
Yeah.
And I tell you, Jay, Rudy's 110% right. Like,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
the political people,
Rudy's right.
but the other state, career people stay. But as for Lindsey Graham, he knew better.
Yeah.
And we lobbied him. And I know Rudy's been by his office as both as a congressman and as a senator. You know, I banged on his door. I laid out the issue of discrimination against black farmers and farmers of color. He's never once used his megaphone to say, hey, we need to fix the problems at USDA and stop discriminating against black and other minority farmers. He never said that. But the minute he thought that farmers of color were going to get just a little bit of justice, he used his megaphone to say, well, he found it very troubling. And we need to make sure we check the farmers. He should have been checking us when we told him about discrimination. He should have been checking us when we told him about the Hispanic farmers and the Native American farmers and the black farmers and the small scale farmers. And he should have been checking that when we told him he had 6,000 black farmers that needed his help. He never once tried to help us.
I know.
It's a failure to this country.
There was another viewer named Antonio Leon, and he said, when a farmer can't produce a crop and doesn't receive subsidies, do they still own and keep their land, and for how long?
I'm going to take a crack at it, and then everybody can jump in.
Go ahead.
After 1 or 2 years of not getting a loan and participating in subsidies after disaster, the farmer probably winds up on the auction block. So it's difficult to hold on to the land without access to credit. It's difficult to compete with your white scale neighbors when you're not participating in a U.S. farm subsidy. That means when he gets a happy check, you're not getting one. It's tough to compete. So it's hard to hold on to your land when you don't have access to credit.
And I can say that, we represent farmers. We do a lot of mediation. One of our farmers in Alabama is 23 years old, and he had his loans accelerated because he was behind $300. If a farmer is behind $300, why would you accelerate his loans and ask him to pay or force him to pay over $135,000 within 90 days? It just doesn't make sense. And what the FSA officials said was it wouldn't have mattered if it was $15 or 15 cents. The law's the law. And so, but what happens with loan servicing under 1951 is that oftentimes white farmers were receiving write-downs and write-offs, and they would have reamortizations. But black farmers and Native American farmers actually had their loans accelerated, and they were forced into foreclosure. And John can speak a little bit more about it. The black farmers were offered to go into leaseback buyback programs. Yeah. And so USDA really misled them into believing that if they signed their land back over to USDA, they would lease it back to them and they could buy it again. And it just didn't happen.
But you know what? I just saw a comment from, I think his name is Himlet. No, Stephen Redclay. He said, my wife's co-worker's son is 23 years old, and White received a degree from Texas A&M. He received a grant for $250,000 to farm on land he's renting. So how in the hell is that, balance across the board?
Well, because he can say he has the education, he has 3 years of experience, and that's where the difference comes in. That
he's got the education, he's got white skin.
Right, and the loan officer has the discretion to approve or disapprove. And then if you appeal it, then you got the county committee. And so you're just, the deck is stacked against us. And Vilsack has stacked it even more against us.
Well, and we spoke earlier about Secretary Vilsack, and someone asked me today, did I think he could fix it there? It's hard to fix something, Jay and Sandra and Rudy, that you were at the heart of participating in.
Right.
He was at the heart of participating in discrimination for 8 years. at the United States Department of Agriculture, and they brought him back for 4 more years. So it's difficult to fix something that you were already a part of and say was okay for 8 years.
Right,
I
right.
think, you know what I think? I think the black farmers, native farmers, women farmers, and Hispanic farmers need to petition Biden to get rid of this clown, you know?
Well, you know, Jay, I just want to piggyback on something else because there's a lot of switch and bait, you know, and a lot of times terminology. We think it's one thing, and then we get down to the final print and we read, we realize, you know what, that really didn't say what we thought it said. And I'll give you a good example. The Lumbee Act of 1956. It's a federal act, and it says you're Indian, you're Indian, you're Indian. But when you get down to the very last sentence, it says, however, because you're Lumbee Indian, you're not entitled to any benefits any other Indian receives because of their Indian status.
Yeah, but you know what? Do you know what? I remember when the Lumbees had federal recognition. And
Right.
when
From
they
Congress.
they took it from them. And I
Yeah.
think the reason they took it from them was because the Lumbees in North Carolina ran the Ku Klux Klan out of North Carolina. That's a bit of history people don't know. But let me read.
But Jay, I just want to say this really quickly, is that a lot of people think that this is going to be debt forgiveness, that these loans are going to be canceled, but it's not. It says it's a payment. So taxpayers are paying $4 billion to pay off these loans, and those farmers are going to get like a 1099 saying that that was like money, a subsidy given to them. And so my thing is, if you cancel a debt, usually money's not paid. It's just forgiven, right? If you get a write down and a write off, but they didn't. They did something very tricky here, and that the money's going to come in to pay off all these farmers of color, their loans, right? And then how's that $4 billion going to go back out? Is it going to be allocated to farmers of color, or is it just going to go back out to white farmers the way that it has 99% before?
It's that same old good old boy system that started the so-called United States of America. They never meant to do anything for anybody of color. The only people of color that they did something for are their people of color. And
That's right. Well, you know, and we've gotten some calls and mail from places like Oklahoma where white farmers are going into the county office and want to change their race to Native American.
Wow.
And we've gotten this from a lot of sources.
help me.
There is
Dennis?
a they're trying to fill out to change their race. All of a sudden, they want to be Native American now. All of a sudden.
Until it gets bad.
Those $5 Indians are back again.
And you know, and this is why, how do people question when people are so suspicious of the stuff that goes on in these federal agencies? I mean, these agencies are being paid and maintained by our tax money.
Right.
So we are paying them to maintain and support racism.
Well, you know what? I'm going to read something from you from that same article from USA Today. Senator Pat Toomey, a Republican from Pennsylvania, said it was unconstitutional and argued that Congress should not pass aid that would go towards only those of the right race. No proof of income or loss incurred due to COVID is needed to qualify. Just skin color or when you came to the country. Tommy tweeted decrying a provision. A white farmer struggling to get by Appalachia or anywhere else in the nation is disqualified because of his skin color, and that's a bunch of crap.
Let me tell you, and we heard all that stuff. This is a new loan program that white farmers can't participate in. They leave out the story. They got, and for instance, $29 billion went out to white farmers under the Trump administration. 0.05% went to black farmers. So this isn't a new program that excludes our farmers. It isn't reparations. This is for farmers of color, blacks, Native Americans, Hispanic, whoever fit the definition of socially disadvantaged farmers who ain't been getting nothing for decades. This is who this is for. And they never want to talk about why you can't get all of the subsidies that they've been getting for decades. So they leave that whole sentence out. That one little measure, they spent all night, we watched it on C-SPAN, putting 10 amendments on the floor, Jay. Senator to to weaken the language or pull the language from the spending bill.
There's a guy that just wrote a comment. His name is Leroy Hardy. He says, John, Kara, and Rudy are telling the truth. I've experienced some of the same things here in Southampton County, Virginia.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, now, my next question to all of you, why is it that the mainstream press won't cover this?
It's tough. It's tough, and it's not because they don't know about it. We've been beating the pavements trying to really break through in the media to really open the eyes up to America. You know, I've been to places where, I'll be honest with you, Jay, they said, we didn't know that there were such a thing as a black farmer.
Oh, please.
In the United States. And we've lost everything. So first they steal all the land from the Native Americans, and then we were able to get some after the Civil War, and then they take it all back from the blacks. It's the same pattern over and over again. So the quicker we band together, the quicker we can fight this bureaucracy.
May I offer you,
Over
Rudy?
the years, Jay, agriculture gets minimal amount of mainstream media attention, and it's even worse when you have these ethnic communities that it's in our DNA. I mean, we want to farm. We farm even if we have to subsidize with an off the farm job. I mean, my dad and my sisters who are now farming, they do that. It's incredible. It's just they just want to touch the earth.
Yeah.
And so, and there is minimal amount of any kind of effort by mainstream media. Is like, who the hell feeds these folks? And if we are not around doing the farming and the harvesting and stuff, we as small producers produce 22% of food, not oils, not grains, food.
Right. So,
And
Rudy,
yet,
I got to compliment you on something, Rudy. You've been involved with this from birth because you, as a little boy, grew up under Cesar Chavez, and your father, and I've got to recognize you for that, and you held true to your values. But let me tell you something, all of you now have a new hero in Congress. His name is Raphael Warnock, and he's from Virginia. And he says that Republican senators attempted to remove the provision from the relief package with an amendment proposed by Toomey. And the farming legislation was led by Raphael Warnock, Democrat from Georgia, along with Senator Cory Booker, Democrat New Jersey, Ben Ray Lujan, Democrat New Mexico, Senator Debbie Stabenow, Democrat from Michigan, who chairs the Senate Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry. And he said, for too long, farmers of color have been left to fend for themselves, not getting the support that they deserve from the USDA, making it more difficult for them to recover from this pandemic. So go and see Raphael Warnock, because I think he's on to something. He knows the truth.
Yes,
and another
if I may make a suggestion, get him on your program.
Not a problem. I will do that.
Okay.
Now,
I mean,
also,
it's important because that gives most of the folks.
It gives
A lot of the folks that are you need to get somebody so that we can get some kind of feedback and support from some of those mainstream folks that help us.
Mhm.
And they need to come on your programs.
Okay. So
Yes, and Jay, we need to make sure that we nominate people for this equity commission that have been there for decades, who know the stories and who knows where the bones are buried and who aren't afraid to speak up. That's the problem, is if you have someone at the table who is timid and shy and, doesn't want to really bring about the change that we have so hard and for so long been fighting for. That is a travesty and an injustice. We need people who are outspoken and who want to bring change. And if someone is afraid to have someone at a table with them that may not agree with them, but can actually have a conversation and accomplish change, then, we're not going to get very far.
That's right. I made a call to my friend, Congressman Raul Grijalva's office today, and I'm expecting to hear from him sometime this week. And I'm going to bring it up to him because, Rudy, Grijalva is a beast when it comes to standing up for people's rights, especially Native rights and Black people and Hispanic people. So I'm going to get in his ear. He's a friend of mine. But then there's also somebody just put a comment up. What was that last comment? I think it's from William Hamlin again. He said, Mr. Boyd is telling the truth. Damn right he is. I don't deal with people that lie. He said, I went to Arkansas to pick up my soybean planter. And when I arrived there, they told me I was the first Black farmer they've ever met. Oh, come on, please. And that was back in 2014.
Yes.
Well, fool, anyway, I can't say that on the air.
But and he's right, and it shows that we have such a long way to go in this country on race relations. Something we haven't spoke about. And in rural America, Jay and Santa, where we are right now, is more divided than ever I've seen in my adult life. I can ride down the Interstate 58 that runs east and west across the United States and see rebel flag with the Trump sign or flag on top of it, and on bonds, and the tension between Black farmers and white farmers and out here in rural America is a tension that and culture and that I haven't seen in my adult life. So this country needs racial healing. Needs someone that can bring the minds and the right people to the table and begin that process, because our country is hurting and it's at an all-time low on our race relations in this country.
Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you what. I think the worst harm, recent harm, and even further back then, that has been done to race relations was the idiot that was in the White House before Biden. And this man is sick. He is a racist, and he's a sick racist. So our brother again, he said, go to a cattle auction or equipment auction and tell me how many farmers of color you see there. You don't see them there. They don't have the resources, and because the reason they don't have the resources is because the damn USDA won't give them the money that they owe them.
And when they give them the money, they give them a supervised account, and then they monitor how they spend it. I have a complaint right now that I'm working on from South Carolina, and the farmer says he qualified for $50,000. They gave him $25,000, and that the loan officer wanted him to make $200 payments before the money was ever dispersed.
Wow.
And and then when he wants a piece of equipment, he has to go out, find it, and then go back to her to get permission to buy it. And all of that is time. All that is a hindrance. And so supervised bank accounts and stuff, it just really demeans, the function of our farmers of color.
That's nothing but a new age slave master.
It really is. It's awful, and especially the times in the 80s and 90s, I didn't know a Black farmer that did not have a supervised bank account. That's where the county supervisor.
But the white boys don't have one.
No, they don't. And I was getting ready to make that point, Jay.
Yeah.
Every white farmer I knew picked up his check, deposited in his account, and went on about his happy merry way. Black farmers wasn't offered debt write down the way that white farmers were in my community, and I know this for a fact. We were forced into the lease back buyback program, and that's how the federal government got millions of acres from Blacks, primarily from the southeastern corridor of the United States. They promised them, once you sign the deed back to USDA, you'll be able in years buy it back or lease it back. The minute you sign that deed, it went to one of the people on the county committee. And
You
Yes.
know what? I'm gonna tell you something else too. Pay attention, because a dirt poor white farmer, they've pushed them right into the bag that you all in.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
and I said that at the beginning of the show. You know, farming is the hardest occupation. And look here, I don't want to sound like somebody that hate white people. I don't.
I don't hate them either.
There's good white folks, and just like that brother who beat up on that Asian person, he should be in hell in a handbasket. Right
Yeah.
is right and wrong is wrong. There's some good white people that have helped on the black farmers issue, the small farmers issue, and they're if those farmers qualify and get the benefits, I'm okay with that. But if I qualify and Rudy qualifies and Carol qualifies as people of color, then we need the same access to those programs and treat people with dignity and respect.
Across the board. Yeah.
Right.
So,
So, John, I don't know if our listener William is already involved with National Black Farmers Association, but how can he and other people who are farmers like that get involved with NBFA?
They can. I'm going to give out the number because everybody has it anyway.
go right ahead.
Call 804-691-8528. We have a couple of websites: Black Farmers with an S.org and National Black Farmers Association.org.
Native American Farmers
There you go. Speak up.
.org. I'm sorry. Native American Farmers.org and womenfarmers.net.
You know, this is
And,
almost
and William is involved. We happened to meet William at an equipment auction this past weekend.
Only two black people there.
Yeah, and we go and we try to make an effort to kind of reach out and make sure that that they're getting an equal opportunity to bid on the equipment. We won't bid. John and I won't bid on something if we see another black farmer bidding on it. And we started a conversation and talking to him and really looking at his story. And that's the thing is, if they reach out to me, I'm the event and program coordinator, and we can help them go through and the process of how to file a formal complaint and how to make sure that farmers who may have a loan that qualifies for this loan payment or the emergency relief, that they're able to get the information when it becomes available.
Well, you know what, Rudy? I'm gonna tell you something, bro. All of this conversation tonight make me want to go and buy some land and become a farmer myself. Because
That's it. And you know what, Jerry, the interesting part about that, there's no minimum land size. You can farm right there where you are. You can get a farm serial number, and people are, farming on their rooftops, doing urban farming in New York City and making six figures. And what's sad is we have people in the country in the South who have hundreds of acres and can't make $100. And
I got 3 acres of land out there right outside my house.
Yeah, well, we're gonna go get you a farm serial number and get you growing.
Well, look, I'm gonna tell you right now, they're not gonna give Jay any money. You might as well forget about that.
Why is that? Why is that?
Because you're not quiet, you're not gentle. You go night wolf.
Dangerous show in America, Jay.
Well, and Jay, and that's the issue, that USDA has the best programs. I mean, you can buy a farm with no money down, 100% financing. You can buy a house, no money down, 100% financing under Rural Development 502. These are national programs. These are taxpayer dollars. And the thing is, if we're not participating, then, we're missing out. And so that's why I tell people there was telegram, telephone, telecara. If you don't want someone to know, they better not tell Kara.
Yeah, okay. So look, this is what we're going to do now. We have gone over our time, and I don't care. Before I ask you this question, will you come back again, John and Kara and Rudy?
We would love to be a part of this. And
Absolutely.
Again, Jay, and congratulations on a marvelous show and a marvelous format. So my hat's off to you. Congratulations,
Bro, thank you.
Yeah,
Throw
I like
me
this
that
one.
hat, Kara.
Okay, so now let's go first. Rudy, you got any closing thoughts? And will you come back again?
No, I just want to thank you, and I like this format that you are involved with. This, if I can only get my computer to be able to, and not have to use my cell phone, because you guys are like, tiny. I can barely see it, but it's always good to see you, John and Kara, and stay healthy, safe, and and keep on trucking, man. You know, you do anything, you know, you got a partner.
I know we do. I know we. Thank you,
Okay.
Roy.
So let's start with Kara first. Kara, will you come back again and bring John with you?
I sure will. And, you know, I would be remiss if I wouldn't tell everyone how I met Jay. I actually met Jay in the airport in Oklahoma at a farmers conference many, many years ago.
Wow. Look at that.
He was lost.
But now you were found.
Yeah. So now, before we go there, I want to say thank you to Lane Cobb. She's watched the show for the first time. Thank you so much. And she said, thank you for sharing this information. Okay, John, it's on you.
Thank you. Well, thank you again for having us. And this is a very, very important show. And I know we invited many of our Facebook friends to watch it. And we want to come back. And this issue that we're discussing is bigger than anybody on the screen. And we want to work together to bring about a solution. And I believe now is the time in history to address it and get it out there. And we just want to partner with people like you to continue this message.
Okay, one of my Dakota brothers, he was just up there.
That's all.
Charles,
Dakota Moore.
yeah, that's crazy. One of my best friends, but you know, you all, I had a stroke a couple of weeks ago, and my memory, my recent memory is being challenged. But that's okay. I know how to get through that too. But I want to say to both of you, and Sandra, you have any closing words before we close out the show?
Just thank you all so much for what you're doing. Thank you for being strong and being a loud voice and coming together, because it is extremely important that people of color come together, because together we are much bigger and much stronger than we are separately. And of course, history shows us that the intent was to separate us and to weaken us that way. So seeing the three of you together is beautiful. You're saving the circle.
But you know, my grandfather used to say, if you do this, it's called unity. And as long as you lock together, you can't let anything get in between that's going to hurt or harm all of the people involved. So, thank you, Mary Thompson, for being a part of watching us tonight. And all of you all that have been a part of watching this program, I encourage you to do something for me. Do me a favor. On YouTube, like my show.
We will.
And
Subscribe
to my show. And leave a comment. And I thank all of you for being a part of this. And Sarah Baudet, you said amen. Absolutely. So I'll leave you with this story. My grandfather, Lim, from South Carolina, would always say this to us. It's not about the pigmentation of your skin or the color of your eyes or the texture of your hair. It's not about the clothes you wear. It's not about your tradition or your culture. It's not about the deity that you pray to as your God. What it's really all about is how you treat my heart.
That's right.
Until next week, Danada, Boahi, Wado. Thank you. We'll talk to you next week.
Ona.